buddy study. All right, if you haven't done this already, please go back, try it out for yourself. Okay, solve the following system of equations using elimination and substitution. Check your point of intersection with your buddy. You should both have the same POI. If not, work together to find your mistake. So I suppose you could solve it either way yourself, but that's not developing the learning skill of being able to make contacts, right? I know there used to be this huge push on teamwork. Now the push is on making contacts. You cannot call people later for help if you don't know those people to begin with. So stop, look at the person next to you. If you haven't done this already, and I'm putting it in the listing, please do this with a buddy. All right, so the first buddy is going to do elimination, second buddy is going to do substitution. This is not the only way to do this answer, so if you did yours slightly differently, that's okay. So I chose to make my y's line up, so I multiplied this by 2. I did that because that's the easiest way to do this. Then I subtracted, because if I have a negative subtract a negative, that gives me a negative plus 12, and then that will give me 0. And again, reminder that this negative goes through to all the pieces. So 6 minus 2 is 4, and 0 minus 8 is negative 8. Divide by the coefficient in front of y, gives me x equals negative 2. Sub it back into the easier equation. I thought this one was easier, so that's the one I used. I put the x where the x goes, and then add it back. Divide by the coefficient in front of y, and you end up with y equals negative 1. So my POI is negative 2, negative 1. If you did it slightly different, that is okay. Substitution. So for this one, I want to isolate this x because it's the easiest one to isolate. So I'm going to take this negative 6, add positive 6 back. So here I have what x equals. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to drop it where you see x in the equation. So there's x, there's the equation, x, equation. So then 6 times 6 is 36y, 6 times 4 is 24, minus 12y. We're going to take our y's, put them together. 36 minus 12 gives us 24. To take this 24, move it over here by subtracting 24 from both sides, divide it, and we end up with y equals negative 1, which is the same as what we got before. Woo! And then we're going to take this negative 1, pop it in here. This time I chose the other equation. You could have chosen the first equation again. It doesn't matter. And so I've got that in there. I've got my negative 1 where the y is. Multiply that out, subtract, and it gives you x equals negative 2. You have the exact same number. So hopefully you and your buddy got the same answer, and hopefully you've made a contact or maybe even a friend. Which was the point of this exercise. So moving on, which is best, elimination versus substitution? So we've been talking a lot in this class about making sure that we can do things as efficiently as possible because speed matters later. At least in university land, it matters at a point. So there is a faster way and a slower way to do all of these. So let's talk about it. So substitution is when you want to do the substitution when you have a variable isolated, right? So here, one of my variables is isolated, super easy to just pop it in here. One of my variables is isolated, super easy to just pop it in. Super easy to just pop it in. It also works really well when you have, if it wasn't isolated, if it was just all by itself. So if you look here, this one was really easy for substitution because you could rearrange it really fast, right? So not necessarily just isolated, but isolated and or has a coefficient of 1, makes it really easy. Elimination is great when the terms are the same. Okay, so here our 5s are the same, our 2s are the same, or when you have something complicated like this, so this isn't going to do substitution well because I would end up with fractions if I, isolated something like this. So the best move here would be to multiply both of these by some kind of multiplier to find like an equivalent fraction. So for this equation here, I'd want to multiply the whole thing by 3. This whole thing, I want to multiply it by 4, so that I end up with 12x in both of these spaces. All right, so let's take a look. So here we go. For each of the following, determine the best way to solve if you can eliminate the variable using adding or subtracting, or if you need to multiply the equation, or if substitution is best. So this is the fastest way to solve each of these. So in this case, I'm going to add them together because a negative plus a positive is going to give me 0. And if I'm adding, I'm going to use elimination. Here, I can isolate x really fast, so I'm going to use substitution. Here, it's already lined up for me. They're both positive, so I want to subtract, and then I can use elimination. Here, this, I could divide by 4 and use substitution. The reason I'd want to do that is because I got my y over here, my x's over here. They're all in different areas. So to reline it up for elimination, I'd have to do a bunch of moving. Whereas if I just divide by 4 here, I've isolated my y, and then I just take this and pop it in where the y goes for substitution. For this one here, I want to multiply both equations either by 7 and 2 or by 3 and 5 so that I can make something in here equivalent. For these ones here, these ones are kind of gross. So remember what I told you, this is the same as like 1 over 11 times x, 1 over 8 times y. So the best way to do this is to multiply each equation by the greatest common factor. And I'm actually going to show you how to do that down here, because this is one of the questions in the homework and it's kind of gross if you don't already know how to do it. So what we're going to do is, here I've got 11 and an 8. What do those two have in common? 88. So if I multiply this whole thing by 88, I've got 88 divided by 11 is going to leave me with 8. 88 divided by 8 is going to leave me with 11. And 88 times negative 2 is going to give me 176. And if you don't believe me, try it out on a separate sheet of paper. For here, if I just multiply the whole thing by 4, so I don't want to multiply it by 2 because that's not going to fix my whole problem, right? So I want to multiply it by 4. So 4 times x divided by 2 is the same as 2 times x, and 4 times y divided by 4 is the same as just y, okay? And then 3 times 4 is 12. So once you've got these two, it's really easy to see. I just need to isolate y and solve the equation. Easy peasy. So what I would like you to do is try these out. Here are the answers. Make sure that you're getting these answers. If for whatever reason you're not, this would be a good time to talk to your shoulder partner. All right, over on the back, try this out on your own and then come back to the video. So for this, elimination is best. I want to multiply this by 2 so that my 4 and my 2 line up. And then I'd want to do elimination. For here, I've already got something isolated, so I'd want to use substitution. For here, I've got 2 things isolated. That's easy peasy. So I just put this over here. I'd want to use substitution. And for here, I'd want to multiply each one separately. So the top one by 5 and the bottom one by 2, and that will give me 10x here for both of them, and then just subtract them. You can also do 3 and 7 to give you 21 on both of them, and then just add them together. Okay, so elimination is best. And here I've done a full example for a substitution. You can graph it if you'd like, just so you can see it. I didn't feel the need, but if you do, there's a graph there for you. So here, substitution is best because I've already got something isolated. So I've got y equals 3x minus 4. So I'm just going to pop it in where the y is. Y equals 3x minus 4. So y equals 3x minus 4. Then I'm going to expand. That'll give me this here. And then I'm going to collect like terms. It'll give me that. And then I subtract the 12 to get this to move over here. Divide by the coefficient in front of x. And I end up with x equals 1. Pop this over here. I thought this was the easier equation. You can do whatever you'd like. Either equation doesn't matter. You will get the same answer. A 1 goes in there, and that gives you that. So my final solution is 1, negative 1. Now this one down here, we're going to do as elimination. So in this case, I want to make the beginning look the same. You could do the same with the middle. It doesn't matter. So here I did all of this times 8, which gives me this. I did all of this times 6, which gives me this. Now I've got my 48 lining up, subtract them, gives me 8y equals 16, divide by the coefficient in front of y, which is 8, and that leaves me with y equals 2. Pop it back in. There isn't really a nice equation, so I just grabbed the top one. 5 times 2 here gives me 10, subtract 10 or add 10 to both sides, and that leaves me with 6x equals 18 divided by the coefficient in front of x in this case, and I end up with 3. So my final answer is 2, 3. All right, so these ones, if you haven't tried them out on your own, please try them out. So for this one, I'm going to subtract and I'm going to add. So I'm going to show you how you can do the same thing and you should end up with the same answer. All right, so here I'm going to subtract it and I end up with negative 8y equals 8, end up with y equals negative 1, pop that back into the equation, end up with x equals 4. Here I'm adding them instead, and if I add them, that gets rid of that, and pop it back into the equation, and that gives me that. So my answer is for negative 1 in both instances. You can also solve by substitution, but in this case, this is the 2 fastest way to solve this, by adding and subtracting, which is why I chose those methods. Okay, check out the homework for today, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.